Hello, and welcome to another episode of Power Podcast 00Status. I'm one of your hosts, Motogato553. How's that all going? And with me is Mr. Sushi B. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm looking forward to this one just because, as previously mentioned, a few of the other episodes is one that we had recorded in the past. But we've had a good lull in time, so it was nice to sit down and rewatch this one. So I'm looking forward to it. And how about for you? How are you doing?
I'm doing alright, a little sleepy, but I should be alright. I've got my tea, yeah,
As long as it's not sleepy time tea.
It's not sleepy time tea.
That's good.
Yeah, I do like my sleepy time, but yeah, no, it's interesting to go back to this one, particularly because we've already done two other Craig ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make you wonder how well can it. How to put this? You see the train coming off the rails.
Mm.
How good's the train ride before it gets on it? Does it still last? Kind of thing. Can you just kind of like, scalpel and then cut it to be like, it's its own little thing. So, but yeah, and this is the only one that I've ever seen in the movie theaters. So,
Okay.
yeah, I haven't seen any of the others in the movie theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Quantum came out. I think that weird goofy time when I was in between being in Japan and stuff, so I was just kind of like, I'm too busy. Last year of college and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, saw it in the movie theaters. How about yourself? What is your kind of first memories of Casino Royale?
I can't remember when I first watched it, but I do have a memory of this. I remember where I was, and there was this guy that I knew. We were studying something at the time, and he had said he had gone with a few other people from this class, and he was just raving about this movie. He was just going on, and he was like, I have to go see this when it comes out. I don't remember what all his intentions were, and if he was like a huge Bond fan or anything, but I don't know if he'd just seen the trailers and it intrigued him. But he was really excited to go see the movie, and then I talked to him the next day, and he wouldn't stop gushing over how much he enjoyed the film. And it was just so many aspects of it, and he was like, like the Bond girl was great, and this, and he without spoiling anything, he just kind of really praised the movie really highly, and so it was okay, interesting. Didn't intrigue me enough to go out and see it in the theater. I would say I probably saw it about a year or so after its initial release, something like that. Yeah.
Just didn't really snap you up, huh?
No, I don't know what it was. There was a lot going on for myself at the time, maybe kind of like for you with Quantum.
Okay.
So I just kind of got put on the back burner before I finally got around to seeing it. And then it was on rotation on television quite a lot after. So I did see it in full, and then I saw large portions of the film here and there over the next several years.
Yeah, that's kind of like around the time of like that line of demarcation where I really fell off the wagon on watching TV. like I'm one of those weird oddballs that hasn't watched much TV, like TV just in general, since about 2006.
Well, and that's funny. I didn't really either. I think the only thing I would leave on is there's a few sort of movie channels. So it was something to leave on while I was usually doing something else. But watching sort of TV, such as TV shows or news, that's been off of my plate for a long time. Like, I don't subscribe to streaming services or anything. Honestly, I feel it's a waste of money. I don't need to spend $30 a month on a product that I might.
When I can spend $30 on 3
Candy.
movies.
I don't know.
Or Candy, yes, that's Candy.
Yeah, just it doesn't intrigue me. And yeah, there's a few shows here or there. And like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting to watch, but not enough to want to spend the money kind of thing. So, but yeah. Anyways, it was a movie that was put on heavy rotation for a while, and so it was on. And like, yeah, sure, why not? And especially before Quantum came out, they were really trying to push the next Bond movie. So this one was often on television for a good stretch there.
Yeah, I don't really think it was one of those that after I watched it, I didn't really watch it again until being in Japan and then being able to access Quantum. And so I would watch it again and then watch to pair it with Quantum and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of as much as I have enjoyed this film, it's one of those ones where it's like, I don't know if it's just because it's in appropriate doses for me, or if it's one of those that I can, like, I've talked to you about how I enjoy Conan the Barbarian. I could literally just turn that movie on and have that movie
watched.
It could be the only movie I ever watched in my life, and that could be okay with me. So, but since I guess I was the one who picked it, I guess we
sure did.
Start with things that you like. So I will point this out because I do like to point this out with the other ones as well. This movie is nearly 2.5 hours long.
It is.
It does not feel like it. It feels like it's about an hour and 45 minutes or so.
Okay.
To me, I don't know. It just feels. This movie feels really quick.
It's got a brisk pace.
Yeah. It's brisk, and it changes up enough to where it doesn't languish too much in itself. Mm-hmm. You probably the worst spot would be at the end, but I think that ending is also trying to like get this whole thread started and get little peeks of it here and there. Mm-hmm. So I can give it a pass.
Okay. I feel the film does languish a little bit when it gets to the torture sequence. Like it doesn't screech to a halt or anything. Okay. But at that point, from there to I would like to think we're not spoiling anything at this point. And if we are, we've done that in every one of these, I don't know, looks at these movies. But right up until you get to the point just before Bond goes to introduce himself to Mr. White. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I really like this part of the movie. But I do feel there's a bit of a tonal shift in a lot of what's happened, and kind of it's justified. Like there's a good reason as to why. But everything else,
the party stopped.
yeah, it does. But it's moving quite quickly, even into the poker game. Like it still feels like there's a lot happening and it's moving along really quickly.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like when it gets to the poker bit, that in Montenegro, it slows down there, but it's an appropriate slowdown to some degree. Like I don't dislike Mathis's character, but in some ways this movie hasn't aged well with him kind of going, hey, this is a tell. Mm-hmm. You know what a tell is? It's like, please stop. Please treat us like adults.
Well, and I look at that stuff as more, because even when Bond is explaining some stuff to Vesper, I look at that more as so for the international audience who may not completely be up on how poker is played in some regards.
Well, especially because you have Texas holding, so it's kind of like, well, at the time it was booming. Like it's
everywhere. Definitely.
Right. Yep. So I guess because it feels a bit out of sorts now. Mm-hmm. I mean, but it's similar to like the card games they were using before. I can never pronounce it. What is it? What's it?
Baccarat.
Baccarat. Thank you. Like I've read rules for that. My brain still does not understand that game.
Yeah.
I'm too stupid.
I forget. Same here. I was looking at it and I kind of get the gist of it. And the Bond movies never really. It's such a small bit that you never really get enough of okay, I see why that card was played, or it's so short. Mm-hmm. But going to Texas Hold'em over Baccarat, because the book is Baccarat that they play, is that right? Hold'em was a really good choice, just as you said. It was booming. It was. Yeah. It's a little simpler in its approach to strategies and so forth. Mm-hmm. So it made a lot of sense, and they did a good job filming it. Like, it was intriguing enough to keep wanting to know what's going on or what the next set of cards might look like, and they didn't overkill it. Just, we got to show a whole bunch of hands. They showed enough hands that it's intriguing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that it's not just
hour and a half of playing poker or something.
Right. Doesn't it like, if it's enjoying a hall, like an arm of a museum, you go to a museum and you're kind of in a particular arm for a very long time, mm-hmm. but not too much to where you're like missing out on the rest of it.
Right.
It's kind of that sort of vibe.
The museum will be closing in 15 minutes. Oh, jeez, I've only seen it.
Wrap up the movie. We're done. Get out of here.
We only get that a little bit at the end. It gets wrapped up a little quick, but other than that, yeah, there's really good pacing and stuff.
So yeah, I'd say the pacing for the film, for the most part, still holds pretty well, mm-hmm. even upon subsequent viewings. The writing is, I don't know how to put it. It feels a bit more playful, mm-hmm. in certain ways, where in some of the latter, particularly like Spectre and thank you, Skyfall, it feels a little too like trying to be super serious at mm-hmm. times, mm-hmm. where this is a little bit more playful. And Ava Green, she does a really good job. It isn't how to put it. It isn't, I don't know how to really put it. I like her in this movie. Like, mm-hmm. So Mads, when he's torturing, he's like, all the stupid extra silly stuff. Nah, just like a rope with a ball at the end.
Yeah.
Like it just knotted rope that's been oiled and hardened.
Yeah, I think on top of that, the other films, the way they're shot, there's just sort of a darkness to the colors and the lighting, whereas this one's a lot more like joyous in its presentation, with a lot of blues, a lot of like brighter yellows and things like that. It's just it's a little more vibrant.
It's the fleeting moment of Bond's happiness, as it goes away,
and that could well be what they were going for here, and especially as things get progressively further down the path for him, where there's a lot more, as we've said, death and not so great things happening in his life, things being taken away. So.
Right, and I think this is where like the latter films kind of start to irk me a bit, is the old manishness. Which, watching this again, holy crap, he looks really young in it.
He does. And he's still like 36-7 here. He's not like super young, but he's looks quite a bit younger.
Yeah, it's wild to see, because he not that he looks ugly, but he looks pretty aged. Mm-hmm. By like Spectre and stuff, but this mm-hmm. one there was points I was like, holy crap, he's looking pretty young there, looking pretty spry.
Yep, for sure. It's funny. I know you haven't seen No Time to Die, but there were a lot of moments in No Time to Die where I was like, okay, wow, like because he kind of slimmed out. I felt in that movie too, like because he's always been kind of a bit more of a bulky body,
Right.
And this he looks quite slim still, and I kind of seen that in No Time to Die. I don't know if it's because he changed his diet for the movie or whatever. But there were just other moments where it was like, yeah, like I see a youthful vibrance in the performance here that just looks a little bit different in the the three set between.
Because he knew he was free after this one.
He was free. Yeah. I wasn't so sure after Spectre. and this isn't to say he was out of shape or anything. He was in incredible shape in all of them. But yeah, like there's definitely a truth to that. I noticed there's a lot of emphasis on his eyes. Remember, there was like, the blonde Bond and the blue-eyed Bond and all this stuff.
Right,
right. There's a lot of emphasis on.
Well, now
they'll be on the beach, and there's the beach background is completely blue, but then they're really highlighting that his eyes, and he's got like really pretty blue eyes. Like they're very, very deep.
Fair.
Yeah, like they're very noticeable. It's a really distinctive trait that he has.
Well, now, like, thinking back, I noticed it a lot more prominent, because I'd mentioned it before with Skyfall, how Skyfall opens with that same sort of just look of the eyes and stuff.
Right.
And how, like, this movie, the ending of the opening theme song credits and stuff does the same sort of thing, and then kind of peppered in throughout the film. I was like, oh yeah, totally forgot about all of this.
Yeah. Well, because I remember when we watched Skyfall, when he walks out of the shadows and he comes up, and then it's like, I think my brain has figured out what it is, and it's when the end of the song, like the opening song and credits in this one, how it's when it's like din 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 din, and it blocks him out, and then his eyes are the last thing. Yeah. I think that's probably where my brain was connecting that imagery from. Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
could possibly be. So, but yeah, there's a bit more of a playfulness to it, and I get that Bond is the young firecracker who doesn't really know, not necessarily his place per se, but is the blunt
He's willing
instrument.
to test boundaries.
Right.
Yeah. How the hell is he doing this, Judy? How many times does she say that? How the hell is he staying one step ahead of us all the time?
Which is always concerning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's pretty fun in this movie, though. Like she seems to be having a pretty good time in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not like this. It's certainly not a goofy film, obviously, but it's got enough mirth in it to where it doesn't teeter into being silly, and it doesn't also then teeter into being like overly melodramatic.
Mm-hmm.
So they hit a pretty good. They were going pretty well with this one.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure.
I would say another one that's it's a little bit more of a mixed bag on it, because there's some very obvious points where it's like, wow, that's really amateurish. But I like the music for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
The one big glaring part is like and it's a music / cinematic thing. It's at the airport where he looks at the gas tanker thing, and then it zooms in, and it like there's the sting of the music, and it does it like 3 times, and you're like, oh, okay, we got it. Thanks.
In case you dropped your popcorn and we're looking away.
Dun, dun, dun. It's like, okay, all right, we got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree on that point, on both points. Thankfully that doesn't resonate several times throughout the movie, right? Of like focusing in on stuff. It does do that a few times, like with the bag claim chip. It kind of like sort of does that, not quite to that extent, but like the camera work does kind of zoom in and stuff. And
yeah, there's a lot of zoom in, like just in case you missed it.
So there's a little bit of sort of hand holding, if you will, to point out so that you don't really miss anything. You know, when you watch a movie and you're like, oh, how the heck did they get to this point in the movie, or how the heck did this person slip this item without anyone noticing? They really make it noticeable that, you know, you see that this happened and that's how we got to this point. So on one hand, it's really good. It's better storytelling in the sense of we're not just filling in plot holes because, you know, we screwed up along the way somewhere.
Right.
So they try to really make it cohesive. But then on the other hand, you can say, well, maybe this is just a little too much at times too.
Like the bomb.
Yeah.
It's like they do enough to, like at that airport, they do enough to, okay, you know, he's recognized that something's going on there. So it's like, okay. But
that second point when they're fighting in the truck, and then he grabs him by the back of the belt. I'm like, okay, that's enough of a hint that when you get to the point that the guy's like, yeah, I'm going to detonate this bomb now. And he hears the ticking, and then he starts fumbling around and realizes it's connected to him. It's like, you know, that was good because it wasn't really like, oh, you really got a chance to see what Bond was doing. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I got it now. I didn't. They don't show it, but you get enough of it to recognize and accept the fact of what happened.
Yeah, it's enough to where it's like, okay, all right, and it's not telephoned or telegraphed,
right?
To be like, oh yeah, let me put this on here. Like it would have, if this was a Moore film, there would have been about a 30-second look at him latching that onto that belt.
Maybe. Well, yeah, or like the struggle of, you know, like reaching for it or whatever. We get that. We do get one moment of that, and that's the fight in the stairwell, right, with the trying to grab the gun. That's right. Pretty much the most excessive, you know, I guess, take of that. Whereas when we had watched Goldfinger, and we were saying, yeah, you know, the guy's in the bathtub and he's like flailing to grab the gun, and it's
fumbling.
And it's quite long and it's kind of silly. We don't really get that too much here, other than that's the one that comes to mind immediately, I guess. So there's a lot more. I don't know if you want to call it realism, but there's more purpose, I guess, with some of that stuff.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's not as drawn out to be like, oh, hey,
unbelievable levels.
Right.
Yeah. But back to your point of the music, I agree. I think the music here by David Arnold is really good. It really complements pretty much all of the scenes and really evokes the proper emotion for those scenes, especially when we get to the Vesper and Bond relationship building. A lot of that music is it's really well composed and it sounds great. The Vesper theme is really memorable. Gets chimed in here and there throughout a few of the additional Craig films when necessary. You know, before we get too far ahead, the theme song, which again, like many of the Bond movies, when it's used thematically or melodically, sounds really good in this movie. Like, that one when it's fun. I think this is the first time Bond drives a Ford. When he arrives in the Bahamas, I get like super excited when he gets off that plane because I love that melodic sort of, I don't know, what is it? I don't know what type of music it is exactly, but just that sort of like vibe of being on a beach. And it just sounds so cool. And, you know, like I can forgive that he's just driving like an average Ford because the music's so good.
Right.
As he's zooming along to the hotel. That's one of my favorite pieces of music, probably in the entire franchise.
Okay. I mean, it's a pretty good tune. Good tune. The theme itself, of course, is just fantastic.
It is.
Like, I don't know. Just that whole, like, the imagery of it works. yeah, it doesn't have like a whole bunch of, you know, had this been made in the 70s, it would have just been a bunch of naked
Women
like
on playing
silhouettes of
cards.
naked, yeah, pretty much that, or the cards on their breast and stuff like that, zoomed in,
aces on the chest and the hearts, and all kinds of stuff. There would have been a heart on the lower half at some point.
Yeah, so
a diamond on the butt.
they were a bit more tasteful.
I agree. I think the title credits they're very memorable, and the theme of the way they did it is really cool. Like it adds to the flair of this movie. It's kind of got a bit of an old vibe to it, but it's timeless now. I think this is the type of imagery you can go back to even in maybe 30, 40, 50 years, and it will still look kind of timeless, and it might become like sort of vintage, sort of, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't overdo it. Like it's cool to see like somebody gets punched in the face and explodes into a pile of diamonds, or
right.
It's cool. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, and Cornell, if I remember correctly, he was part of Soundgarden.
Yes, he was part of Soundgarden and Audioslave,
and Audioslave.
He did his own stuff in between that as well. So.
Mm-hmm. And I certainly knew him much more from Soundgarden growing up and everything. So it was kind of neat because this is sort of the Madonna was a little bit before me, so this is really the first individual growing up that I'm hearing that I'm like, oh yeah, because Sheryl Crow doesn't count. And garbage. I not that I didn't like them or anything. It just wasn't really like there's some of the music like nowadays. But growing up, I was just kind of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, my name indeed.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things about the song, and that was written by Cornell and David Arnold, is other than one Bond theme song, and it doesn't quite completely fit the bill, this movie just completely nails like who James Bond is, and somehow still incorporates the theme of the movie. Like it just wow, like it's crazy to think that it took this long for there basically to be a song about Bond. Doesn't it seem kind of crazy to like this song is literally about like Bond becoming Bond, as well as emphasizing that the gambling side of this movie at a casino plays into that whole theme. Mm-hmm. Really great lyrics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's like you can certainly tell with some of them. Thank you, All Time High. But
I feel like All Time High and For Your Eyes Only, they just feel so similar. I can sit through For Your Eyes Only a little bit more, but they both are just so like that whimsical late 70s, early 80s sort of. Yeah. Like they're very forgettable, like if they weren't Bond themes.
Oh, they're forgettable even as Bond themes. They're just so and it still boggles me with Live and Let Die, like how entrenched that is in people's just people just like they'll be fine with kind of singing a few bars of it if it pops up on a radio or something.
Yep.
I don't know why. This same thing. Like I think it might not have the same stretch just because of how much more media there is.
Yep.
So you don't have 100,000 people. Well, yeah, not 100,000, but you don't have like MASH numbers.
Nothing has MASH numbers.
Well, but you know what I mean though. Like it's just a different time period. So
yeah, it's completely different time period. Like yeah, when there's X number of movies being released in the movie theater, and your options are more limited to being exposed to some sort of media versus how many movies coming out, how many other influences from video games, what have you, whatever media you want to, Video games are probably some of the worst now, right? Like you start playing one thing and next thing you know, there's 15 other games coming out that might interest you. So,
right.
But yeah, I see what you mean, for sure. But yeah, it's such a cool song. Like you can listen to this song in a variety. You could be driving, like it's a decent driving song because it's just sort of kind of a rock song, right? It doesn't have to be related to Bond, and it's just got still fun lyrics to sing, like like life is gone at the spin of a wheel, and that it's got really good lyrics, and they all make sense, right? They're all distinguishable.
Yes,
Well, they're distinguishable. Like, when you hear a song and you can't quite make out maybe what a word is.
Like just that opening.
Man, just a cool title, right? You Know My Name. Like, it fits so well to what the emphasized overarching theme of this movie is, knowing that it's sort of a soft reboot origin type movie, but everybody knows what this is about. So it's so perfectly done, and it encapsulates everything it needs to capture.
It's good.
Yeah, we could probably spend another half an hour still talking about it.
Well, I want to also bounce a little bit earlier into that. I love that the opening scene is filmed in black and white.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or at least presented in black. I don't know if it's filmed in black and white, but at least presented in black and white.
Yep.
Because there's just something neat about that. Because you just pick up on different things. It plays with your eyes a little bit more, and certain things that wouldn't stick out when it's washed in color do start to stick out a little bit more, just because it funnels everything into it's just black and white,
right?
And shadows. So
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a really neat stylistic choice. It is funny now, though, when we see something in black and white and how we can become so enamored with it. But imagine when colored films started happening and people like black and white, like whatever, right?
Give me the glory of Magnavision.
In new Technicolor, filmed in 450 Technicolor colors or whatever the standard became. But I'm even thinking of something like Kill Bill, where there's that sequence that's in black and white, and then it's really neat how Tarantino put that into the movie. I don't know if you've seen that in a while, or if you've seen it.
It's been forever. I don't remember
in the first volume where he, he's focusing in on everything in black and white, and then he focuses in on the bride's eyes, and she blinks, and everything turns to color as she does that blink. It's a really interesting stylistic choice. It's really cool. Well, and I think he put it in black and white partly too because it was so violent. So like there was so much blood spewing as she's carving up that were they the Crazy 88?
Oh, it's starting. Yeah, I don't remember that.
So I don't know if it was done not only stylistically but also to get past censors to some degree.
That's a possibility. Because
there was a lot of blood in that movie. But it's a cool. But it's funny to think just how we see something in black and white, and we can become so enamored with it now to be, this is such a throwback or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, and it really works for this opening sequence. I do remember there is a cut part of this opening sequence in that the scene where Bond is fighting the informant. They had filmed a longer stretch of that because it actually opens in, and it says like, this is in Pakistan. They're at I believe it's a cricket match, and it kind of zooms around the crowd and stuff, and it follows Bond following the informant into the bathroom. We don't just get like the immediate action sequence, but I do remember they pulled that out because it's not that it was wrong for the scene, but they just wanted to kind of quicken it a little bit. And
I think it's probably for the better because you have that really cool parkour chase scene. So it would feel a little too redundant to have this sort of chase, or at least stalking the prey kind of thing going on here. And then, here's opening credits. Here's more stalking the prey. kind of thing. And that whole parkour bit is great. That dude doing all that stuff, that was awesome. Like, yeah. I love that. It's just like, that's so sweet.
Yeah, he's pretty impressive. There's also that movie, I can't remember what it's called. It's called like something like District 13 or something. It's a French movie. And it has the guy, I believe he's the guy who invented parkour. So if you want to see anything else on film that's just like unreal, with like him being chased around like complete concrete jungle of a city and just dipping, diving, jumping through the tiniest little crevice and stuff. It's just even the first, I think it's 15 minutes or something of these thugs chasing him around. Very similar to this. It's worth a watch just for that opening sequence. But it's really good. But quickly back to that first bit, the cold open or whatever you want to call it. There's something I had never noticed until I had seen, I don't know if it was somebody's YouTube channel or it got pointed out. When Bond shoots the other agent, there's a really quick flash of a photo on the table of his family. I don't know if did you catch that by any chance?
No.
So, a very, again, interesting stylistic choice, but it's on the table and it's as he gets shot, he swipes it off the table, like to kind of indicate like, he's dead, like he's out of his family's life. And it's like, oh, interesting. It's a really like blink and you miss it moment. I thought, oh yeah, there's always like these little things that directors put in that, they're super proud of, and it takes someone with like a really sharp eye to catch. Whereas, the general movie going public, even including myself, might not catch those little things until repeated viewings or someone really pointing it out, and you're like, oh wow, really cool. Appreciate they put that in.
Huh. Yeah, certainly one never.
It's very brief, so.
I see. Let's see. Other good stuff that I like in this film. What else have I not mentioned, really?
Do you think that Carter guy dies? that doofus agent who
right at the
take your hand from your bloody ear. What?
What?
Well, because then he falls in with the King Cobra and the what is that? What is the other animal? Not a ferret.
I know. I wanted to say ferret, but it's not.
No, what is that thing called? It's immune to the poison.
Right. I don't remember.
Anyways, hopefully he takes a couple of neck strikes from the.
Yeah, Carter wasn't bringing his A game.
No, he wasn't.
He was bringing A game. It was.
He gets a C- grade.
Yeah, right. But I don't know. I like to think that he kind of got bit and deserved it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there some good stuff that you want to throw out there that I'm sort of not? There's not really. The pacing, the characters, they were pretty good all around.
Yeah, I think the casting choices really work out here, and again, it's probably a combination of doing good casting, there being some really good chemistry between those cast members, as well as the film direction and obviously the writing and everything else. There's not really a bad one of the bunch. The only ones I'm kind of like, not that keen on might be the guy at the airport, but doesn't really have speaking lines or anything.
Oh, the Matchbox 20. Rob Thompson.
The guy there, yeah. but he doesn't have speaking parts, right? He's just
right.
And I think it's intentional that he doesn't look like super menacing, because they want somebody who probably would just blend in the crowd, doesn't really have any distinctive features about him. So again, without any speaking lines, serviceable, right? Like nothing really good or bad necessarily, but like the guys in Africa, the two, I don't know, they're like resistance fighters or something.
Yeah, like what
I
is
like
that? Like
them.
the Lord's Resistance or
Yeah,
something?
I like them. Like, and they don't have big roles, but I think they're menacing
I
enough.
like that they pop up again.
Yeah,
I think that's appropriate. It's like,
yeah.
oh, they're kind of mad.
They dress pretty
Hi.
dapper, you know. They come out. Everyone's got to dress up for Casino Royale. So yeah, like I think it's really cool. The casting is done well, and even the small bit players like Lashif's girlfriend. Like
Oh,
she
yeah,
has
she doesn't
enough of
really have.
yeah, she has enough of a doesn't really have a character trait necessarily, but just like her body language, like looking over her shoulder and just it's like, oh, instantly she's a villain. And so yeah, it's done well. And yeah, I can't really think of anyone who really stands out in a negative light. So I think it was.
I will add a special heartfelt nod towards Katerina
Yeah,
Marino. She's really attractive and
yeah,
pretty
she
lady.
is. She's very attractive.
So, yeah, and her part's such a small part in the movie, but um, it's also giving a backhanded note to Bond kind of just using women,
Yeah,
and especially when like
when they're
he's
not single.
calling that, but also the room service. He's ordering that room service, and it's like for two, no, for one.
My favorite is still, he's convincing her to take the one drink.
Oh, right, and just
Yeah,
drives it
just
around.
just drives around and then welcome to my home. Like,
I
oh,
mean,
you cheeky, you
that's a
cheeky
pretty
little.
good one. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
There is a small bit character in this movie. So do you remember the lady that's at on Lashif's boat when they're playing
Oh
Hold'em?
yeah. She pops up again in the.
She
It,
does.
yeah.
She is in You Only Live Twice, though. I know we haven't watched it yet. She
Really?
plays a Bond girl in that. So
Wow.
yeah, I found out about this a while ago, and I was like, that is really cool, actually.
Yeah,
Because
that's kind of similar.
we get a few of them,
Just
right? A few actors who
throughout the
come back,
series.
but because she plays such a small role in You Only Live Twice, and then such a small, just sort of basically a cameo, right? Like in this, it's really cool. And I've seen this actress in other things, and she's pretty good in a lot of the stuff I have seen her in. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I thought that was kind of I'm assuming this was done purposefully. So, yeah, like I again, truly, like I think a lot of the supporting cast are done. Like, is it Jeffrey Wright as Felix?
For Felix.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's cool.
yeah, he's got to bring a little bit something to the table for the Felix character. Just because we've had a lot of different Felix that you're like, okay, has a big role, but just either feels like kind of incompetent or the actor just seems kind of, I don't know, a bit aloof maybe, like just sort of.
Just not enough there to really hang your hat on.
Yeah, so not overly exciting to see necessarily. We get a Richard Branson cameo in this.
When?
So when you're at the airport, right before
Okay.
the guy with the bomb goes through, Branson goes through before that, and then he gets frisked. So he turns around. He's on the right side as the bomb maker is going through, and he's getting frisked. It's like, again, another like blink and you miss it moment. And then one of the tennis girls, remember the two tennis girls that walk by him when he gets to the Bahamas?
Yeah.
The one on the right, like the lighter skinned, she is like a Victoria's Secret model or something. I can't think of what her name is, but I recognize her.
Okay.
I don't know, again, if that's meant to be a cameo or if it was just like, hey, we just need to get good looking girls for this really quick shot, or how it all worked out. But she's another one that is sort of fairly well known, I think. Yeah, I think we should probably go with that dynamic of Bond and Vesper, though. I think that's something we definitely have to touch upon.
Yeah, that is. It's something.
I would say it is quite possibly the best interactions between a quote unquote Bond girl, or however you want, female lead, and Bond, based on writing, based on like actual actor chemistry, based on the scenarios they get involved in. They're still in a very unnatural environment. Like, it is a movie, right? They're being placed into a very unrealistic place in for 99.9% of people.
Right.
But you can't deny the chemistry between those two actors. Like, it's definitely there, and it's there right off the bat.
Well, I think that partly, because she is half of it. Ava Green's just a really good actress. Like, I also really like her in Kingdom of Heaven. Like,
oh right, yeah, she's in.
But it's not like she's like blaring bloop 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 bloop.
Yeah.
It's just she's just got a really really good strong presence.
She does. And
it's not like she hams it up. It's just done really well. Like the interaction on the train, where they're kind of picking each other apart in a way, and they sort of little pokes and prods to get at each other and see what kind of people they are. It just works really well. Because of the writing, but also because both Craig and Green do a really good job in their roles.
Yeah, for sure. And they just, the chemistry is throughout, right? And it's fun to watch that. I think that probably helps, because there's a pretty quick switch to going from, I can't stand being around you, to, I've just completely like fallen in love with you, which we've seen in other movies, and you're just like, geez, come on.
It kind of helps in that, because Vesper gets this, there's this, what is it, the mystery wrapped inside of an enigma aspect to her, because you don't get a payoff this movie. Sort of. It's not. you get a little bit of a payoff. There's kind of a little bone thrown to you at the end with her. Just a little bit about her, but it's just thinking about that, it's kind of a bit of a cut at the knees. It's more that Bond gets the open up, and he was always very much, and I think she was just, she offers up the money to save his life.
Right.
But I think in a way that it doesn't necessarily, it's partly because of what happens in Quantum, that there's almost, it come across to me as like, maybe there is that, because she takes off the necklace, is that there's this recognition of, hey, the person that I was wearing this for, really? Because you don't really get a good amount of time between that from like when they meet till the ending stuff.
Yep.
Probably, who knows exactly how long he's in and out of stuff, but also the just traumatic side of it, you can kind of pin it a bit to, they're doing these things, and like, I don't know. It's a bit quick, but it's not like, partially just because of the cheekiness between the two.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost, you can sort of make it fuzzier into what's the word I want to use, like flirtatious.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get that all the time with like some of the people I interact with. that are not like coworkers, but that are like a coworker adjacent, we'll say. So, and they're like, "Oh man, she really digs you." I'm like, "No, we're just kind of being flirty with each other, kind of thing. It's not even, it's just kind of having a goof."
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. But I do buy, like, even though I'm saying it is a bit abrupt in a way, it certainly has a much better flow and a much more energetic, like, approach to the relationship. Whereas we've seen other ones where Bond, I can't think of, what was the one with Roger Moore where I can't remember which one it was, where the advances are just being shot down constantly. And even, what's his name? The Brosnan, like Die Another Day. Now that I know that was like done purposeful because there's a sort of plot twist with that one.
Yes, plot twist.
Yeah, a very poorly executed plot twist, but there still was one.
Right.
Whereas, yeah, like you buy into the fact that, like even Mathis says, right, like, "How's our girl? Has she melted your ice cold hot?" Whatever he says. It's great delivery too, the way he says it.
Right.
Mathis has a lot of like good line delivery, even though like you're kind of like, okay, Mathis seems like he's a little too aware and maybe a little too perfect, I guess, like in his execution with stuff. But some of his line delivery is done really well. But yeah, no, I like the flow, and I still completely have bought in by the time we get to when they reach Venice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a comfy bit there in Venice.
Mm-hmm.
Until it's not.
Right. I almost wish there was a little bit more of the romance side stretched out a little bit. Like you get the bit where they're on the beach. You get like I wish there was maybe just a smidge more to just kind of draw it out to show like the relationship blossoming further. Because the relationship really seems to blossom after Bond is rescued from the torture scene. That's when it really kind of starts to, I don't know, manifest more, at least from a film perspective.
Well, that's, you can get into, is she doing this just because of, well, I think the trigger point more is less that and more when he uses her name and she realizes that.
Yeah.
So, how to put it? It's kind of just sort of very businesslike, and then that kind of hits, and it's like almost that like, "Oh, you stupid damn fool."
Yeah. But she obviously saw something before that because she negotiated for his life before that. So the seed must have been planted further, but I think as a viewer, you still don't quite get it. Like you get it a bit when he wins the game, they're at the dinner, and that conversation there really starts to stoke the flame.
Right.
And he's talking about like, I know why you wear that and so forth. And she's totally caught off guard with that, right? Because she kind of even clutches it. And she's just like, oh, it's just a thing I saw in a jewelry shop. And he explains, no, that's like an Albanian, what does he call it? An Albanian?
Love knot.
Yes, thank you. So, he knows what this is. And I think she's taken aback by that he seems to be just that blunt object, but he isn't. Like, he ultimately isn't.
Right. It's not, I mean, his elite hacker skills should have clued the audience in.
Which he clearly didn't need Q for those other movies, because Q just bungles everything up. Even Mr. I can fix the world after my first cup of Earl Grey. Like, but he still needs someone there to pull the trigger, right?
Right.
But yeah, it is a very good dynamic. And I will say this, when Vesper comes up in any sort of smidgen of moment in the preceding films, you feel that sort of reverb still. And so that's a sign of like a character that you immediately care for and are heartbroken that anything bad would come of this character.
Right, that's one of the really nice touches there with Spectre is by that point, the scars are still, there, even though he sees it for a moment and then he just kind of like, oh, it's nothing. It's, it's still
he can't move on completely.
Well, not to like side tangent too much into it, but I think it's that that's kind of, that movie is where he does finally get the move on a bit from it. So it's
a bit, yeah.
But,
more so in the preceding film.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not breaking too much of the ice on that one, but there's some stuff that I think is even in the trailer, actually, if I recall.
I didn't
something that
really
pops up. So, but okay, if you haven't seen the trailer, but I do believe there was something in the trailer that kind of insinuates that something about the former relationship is brought up. Kind of, but
that makes me sad. That should have been a good point to just sort of leave it.
Sorry.
The end. No, not your fault. They're the ones that made it.
Damn you. Damn you all to hell. You blew it up.
You blew it up.
You maniacs. But going back to the Vesper character, I really, after seeing this movie, I don't know how many times and watching it again this time, it's what a complex character, and for all the right reasons. Mm-hmm. Like, you can see the anguish in her face of like you said, like, oh, you damn fool, like this is not part of the plan, right? To fall in love or to have you fall in love with me.
Right.
And watching this again, like, I'm torn. Like, is she truly fallen in love with him, or is she still playing the game? Mm-hmm. And it's hard to know, and that's what's so great about it, is just like, you can watch it again, and maybe one way, depending on how your emotions are, you've totally bought in that she's in love with him. Even when she's like, yeah, it was time to get rid of the Albanian love knot. Well, was it, or was that just her final way of trying to convince him to buy into, their relationship, but she really had every intention of just giving the money, kind of thing. So,
right.
So it's so complex, and it's something we just don't see with many of the Bond side characters, and that's what makes it so great.
Mm-hmm. It is very delectable.
Yeah.
Very tasty.
Yes, it is. And it makes you sad that, I'm glad they didn't just have like a flashback with the Eva Green character or something. But yeah, it's too bad we don't get a little bit more. It would be nice, but it's always nice to want more too,
right. I'd rather
wanting more kind of thing. So.
Well, but I'm much more in the mind of, you got to leave gaps, because if you just fill in everything, it's just that's kind of drab. Sometimes you just leave those gaps because that allows for the audience to hook in and make their own little hooks and lets their own imagination play in those little areas.
For sure. We shouldn't be remiss to forget Mads Mikkelsen in this.
Yeah, the man who died scratching Bond's balls.
He sure did. He sure did.
I don't know what to say about Mads.
In a good way, in a bad way?
Yeah, not like in a bad way or anything. He's good. It's just because he's such a, he's a stepping stone to so much more. Mm-hmm. That, and because he is not just able to, stave off attacks on his own self. It's like I like that because it gives those freedom fighters or those whatever resistance fighters or whatever.
Yeah.
Army, Lord Resistance Army. That's the word.
Thank you.
But there's just. He plays it well. He's just such he's just, because he's such a small stepping stone, it's kind of like, he's the bomb maker for the series itself, for the stretch of Craig films. So it's I don't know. I have a hard way of putting it. Like, I like him and everything, and it's just kind of I like Mads and everything, and it's just I don't know. I don't have anything bad to say, but I'm kind of in a because of just how he plays the character. It's like, he's such a weenie.
Well, I mean, he is supposed to just be a banker. Like, he's literally, that is his function, is to do nothing more. He's not muscle. He's just a smarmy, banker. Like, that's really all he is. And he thinks of himself being a little bit higher on the food chain than he actually is as well. He thinks he has a higher function in place other than to literally move money around for this mysterious agency.
Mm.
But I like that. I think that's what that works from his acting perspective of just, he's supposed to just be kind of greasy and that's really it, right? And I like how MI6 knows about this guy and knows that he's someone they can squeeze if they get him.
Mm.
And that's what I like about his character showcases that the whole way through, and that's why they're so desperate to get him, because they know he's the kind of person that if they were to get him, and he's like, so, if your government needs me and everything, he kind of knows it to some degree, but they know they could squeeze him too.
Mm.
They would cut him off and he'd be in some trouble. And he seems to be the kind of person that has never necessarily made an error to get himself in a bad position, and I think that's why he's absolutely terrified when those guys break into his room because he's not used to have that kind of confrontation.
Mm.
But I do like when he doesn't say a single thing when she's going to get her arm chopped off. It's
you need to find a new boyfriend.
Yeah, it's a great point, right? Like, he's other things around him are disposable. It's all about the money. And that's it. Like, everything else can be replaced with money. So, and I think the last time we recorded this, I think I kept busting your chops about just saying, like, okay, I'll get the money. Like, like, I feel like he says something about getting the money several times throughout the movie, which, I like him, and I like the back and forth play between him and Bond at the casino, the poker game. And even welcome Mr. Beach, or is it Mr. Bond? I'm confused. And we wouldn't want to have that. It just walks away.
Right. It's just whatever.
And even, he's like, I hope our little game is not causing you to perspire, Mr. Bond.
Last hand nearly killed me.
Well, that's the next one. But before that is the
one. Yeah,
I won't start to worry until, I start to bleed from the eye or whatever he says.
Bleed blood.
Bloody tears or something. That's when Bloody Tears should have kicked in. Into a big action scene.
That would have ruined it.
Oh, it would have, but there's probably something on the internet somewhere. Simon Belmont versus Le Chiffre. I wouldn't be surprised. There's a little bit of everything on the internet these days.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, bad things. Are there bad things about this film?
Not a lot, honestly, and that's pretty crazy to think.
Right. Well, I mentioned some of the stings of zooming in to be super dramatic. But that's such a minor gripe. Compared to
it is very much so.
Yeah, I really don't have much in the way to say negatively about this film, outside of it being Texas Hold'em, but that's just because. But that's not even a good negative, because it was the smart move to make.
Right. Yeah, it was a logical change. So.
Right.
You could make some arguments that some of the the drama that does happen during the Hold'em game still does play out in a fairly unrealistic manner, especially that last hand. From a cinematic experience, it's fun,
right,
and fairly exciting. But the reality is, you probably wouldn't have that many players with that many high hands, with that much money in a pot,
all pushing right at the end. It's like, okay, we're done with the poker, get out.
Yeah. It's just like, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the, what does he say? Like, we're in the final stretch of the game, and then it just suddenly switches to that huge hand.
Right.
So that's a little bit silly. I would say, like, putting the tracker in Le Chiffre's asthma inhaler is a little bit goofy. Like, it's so obvious. Like, he walks up, literally picks it up, puts the thing in, and puts it down.
Kind of looking, yeah.
Yeah, like, and there's a ton of people around. Like, wouldn't somebody be like, what are you doing? That's a guy's medication. Like,
you'd be better off with them, like, filming him just kind of like throwing it to,
or dropping it on the ground and picking it up for him or something, right? Bumping the table and knocking it down, something like that. But he literally walks up, picks it up, puts the thing and puts it back on the table. And nobody says a single thing. Nobody sees him somehow. I forgot to mention, there is one other good thing. I like the dealer in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's again, small role, but looks the part, just clean cut. His dealing is really great. Like, just how he's flipping those cards, like, nothing, right? Like, it's really cool. And just his tone of voice, his accent, Monsieur Bond wins. Like, what is it? 4 to the 8, the high hand. Like, he's just got a really cool character about him. And when he just literally throws him, $1 million is it that he slides over to him?
Yeah, it looks, I think.
Casually, just here, have $1 million.
And he's like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, he's just like, thank you very much, sir. It's just an everyday happening. But he's probably paid to be very cool in his demeanor.
Right.
So, and even the is it the maitre d' or whoever, the one that's like the initial guy who introduces everyone, the guy with the mustache?
What about him?
Just like when he's sitting there, he's like, send the barman over and just, this is like that fingers, like, just everything about the casino just feels right.
I like the Swiss guy.
Oh, you like the scene? I would say he could potentially be a negative because he's a little over the top.
He's just the right amount of silly.
Okay. That stupid laugh when he talks about the chocolate. It's like, oh, jeez.
It's just like a quirk of just, he's a bit of an eccentric. He's a bit of a weirdo.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, he's so.
Well, because when he starts laughing, it is almost like a hair's breadth away from Bond. Just Craig looking at the camera itself and just going, "What in the hell?"
This is out of place with the rest of this film.
It's just so close to it.
But it is so minor. Like, he's on screen for what, 3 minutes, 2 minutes,
something.
Yeah, it's not very long. So yeah, it's and even the prior scene with him is very tolerable, right? Like, he doesn't really kind of act too goofy. It's a little bit there, but it's not as much as when he appears the second time. We didn't talk too much about the Venice scene. I don't mind the Venice action sequence, but I find I don't know, it's a little lackluster in the way that it's, I don't know, I don't find it to be that exciting to watch. I mean, up to the point where Vesper is in the elevator shaft, is that part beyond is great. It's done well. But just like the sequence up to them, like, it's okay. Like, it doesn't really get me that fired up.
Right.
Especially because you have this huge chase, you have that huge reveal suddenly, and it doesn't lead to. I mean, it's still really good. Like, it's like to have that building crumbling, and like, it's still really good. It's just, I don't know, it's just missing a smidge of something. I don't know what it is. But
probably a bit more hand to hand, or at least closer hand to hand.
Yeah,
because you get that bit where he gets cut like right across the chest, pretty good.
Right.
And then he takes the The nail gun to the chest, or the shoulder blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the shoulder.
Pulls that sucker right out.
Yeah.
That would hurt like heck.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah.
But
then Buddy takes it right into the. Is he missing an eye? Is that why he has the?
I thought there was I've seen those before. I think
I have too.
Like
but
after eye surgery,
okay.
You have something like that.
Or like when little kids might have to wear an eye patch to help that one eye strengthen itself and focus. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, could be something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. As soon as you see him on the dock, you're like, oh, come on, this guy's a villain. And that's as close as we get to like the over the top sort of like big scar on the face or, whatever. Like,
well, I mean, Chief has
throwing Hat of Death. Yeah, he does. But that one doesn't. Yeah, I don't know why that one doesn't feel like this one. Just feels more sort of classic goofy Bond villain in this case. Yeah, because Lashif is introduced so early, and so the way he's introduced
straight.
Yeah. Whereas this guy, this guy's just standing on the dock and he's got the smirk, and you're like, okay, like this feels like the cold opening of another Bond movie of pulling up somewhere and somebody looking with the dastardly look across their shoulder and stuff. So yeah, again, it's not horrible or anything, but I forget what his name is. His name comes up in the text. I can't remember his name, but it's fine. Don't need to know. It's like
Garrett,
Garrett or something. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant. I mean, the guy only has 5 minutes of screen time or something.
And 4 of it's running.
Right. And then a nail to the eye.
Oh, right.
Or at least the eye region. Yeah, so I would say that is kind of a little underwhelming to a degree, especially because that reveal is so surprising. Like, it's unexpected when it's revealed that Vesper is not playing for their team, basically. But I love how, again, conflicted Bond is, right? Like, he knows that he needs to go after her, but then when he catches up to her, he's putting a silencer on his gun and everything, and
right.
As soon as she's in there, I still am under the impression he's rescuing her because he loves her, not because he's planning on harming her or taking her in necessarily. He wants answers, though.
Right.
Because, when she says, I think her last line is like, "I'm sorry, James." Is that her last line? Something to that effect. And then it slides down into the water.
Right. Something like that. I'm not.
But even like she kisses his hand in the water, right? And he pauses, like he pauses from trying to bust the thing open. And again, I don't know if that moment is he busting it open out of anger still and betrayal, or is it because he was just trying to rescue her? But then she kisses his hand and it causes him to pause, and I think that's when he's trying to actually rescue her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's such a great dynamic, right? It's done so well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any other negatives? There probably are a few others that could come to mind, but it's a lot of nitpicking, really.
There's not enough. There's not enough martinis.
There's plenty of martinis in this.
Not enough, I said.
Not enough. Well, I think there's plenty. Keep the fruit, my friend.
I mean, I do really like it. There's something about this film that it does a really good job, and similarly with Die Another Day did it, where there were those nods, but there weren't like way over the top nods to just the Bond experience kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's like, have a martini when he's been like taken to the cleaner during the poker game, and then the guy's like, "Oh, you want it shaken or stirred?" And he's like, "Do I look like I give a damn?"
Yeah,
like lines like that, and
that's a great line.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Was that improvised too?
I don't know about that.
I don't know if that was improvised or not, but anyways, it's a great line. Great execution too, because he's just like staring off in the distance. Like,
He's like, shut, just give me the drink.
Yeah. Which is fair, right? The guy's just doing his job. So.
Right. That and like you have the Aston Martin, but it's the baddies.
Yeah. Beautiful car. Wow, that car is stunning.
Yeah, right. Mm.
And that flip is just incredible. What is it? 8 rolls, I think it is. That was at a time the longest roll of a car in film history.
It was something. Yeah, I think they had to use like an air cannon to get it to
give it that extra oomph.
To get it to start peeling off the road.
Somebody was driving that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, pretty wild.
You got the poison scene. You know, there's little bits here and there. We can't probably capture everything, but I think the poison scene's fine. But it's I feel like it should have come maybe almost a bit sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just kind of happens a bit late in the poker game, and I get why it does, but I don't know. Just feels slightly out of place at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where else you can really shoehorn it in, or just take it out.
That, or during a different break in the poker match kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of would be like a different break, getting room service or something, and then it happening there.
Yeah. Rather than him like basically missing an entire hand, and again, a hand wouldn't typically take that long to play out, but maybe Felix seems to be trying to milk that hand. So
right,
because he gets what is it? Call me out. So he just automatically folds his hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he could do that for a second hand. I don't know.
Right.
I can't remember all the rules of Hold'em. So, but him stumbling all the way out to the car, it just feels a bit long.
Well, yeah, because he gets the drink and tries to vomit it out and everything.
Right. Well, there's that too. Yeah, so there's obviously a delay in time there. So it's a pretty long stretch of time that you assume is happening for all of this to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And he's called out. So yeah, I don't know. It just feels a bit longer than it probably should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like when he's been dead for about 5-10 seconks, and then she shocks him to life, and all these you okay? Right. I love I like the expression on his face,
and then she's like, me.
Yeah. Get yourself to a hospital. And I like when he's like, thank you, but he's saying it to her, but the guys on the line are like, you're welcome.
Yeah, right.
I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of clever too. That's kind of a fun little play. So there's still some, again, for a quote unquote negative, it saves itself with something that's enjoyable or funny. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. There isn't probably a ton there. Like him sneaking into M's house is fine. Like there's, yeah, good. It's really a great movie with the sense of that flow, like we talked about, and just the pacing is spot on. You don't feel like you're sitting there for 2.5 hours.
Right, and I think that, that's something you can't say for a lot of them.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, when, see that it's over 2 hours, pushing 2.5. There's certain Golden Gun movie that feels twice as long as this one.
Hey, we didn't hate like the first 40 minutes.
I get that.
And then the rest of the movie decided to show up for the family reunion.
I get that. I mean, there's a few others we could probably point to.
Yeah.
But with our wonderful friend, what the heck is his name? Carl. Can't wait to get to that.
We'll get to that one, yeah.
Oh boy. But for negatives just around it, there's really not a lot.
Not really outstanding glaring ones.
Right, that you're just like, okay, thank you, Strawberry Fields. You've
You've done a service to your country.
Yes. Yeah, they were making an effort, and I wonder if that's partially because of how
the response to Die Another Day.
It has to be
100%.
They had
it
to
is.
been
100%.
oh, like this did not go over very well. This is like wet fart at church kind of. You know, it's just,
okay, I was not expecting that comment.
This is just really
a wet fart in a Spectre meeting. You know you'd be instantly dumped out of your chair into a flaming pit.
It burns the fire.
Yeah, well, you need to let another one of those rip. Your fire might be burning a little quicker. But yeah, no, I think you're spot on with your points there for sure of the strengths of the film, and it definitely is a good starting point. And it kind of goes back to my theory that I had mentioned to you. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, the third movie of each actor is their strongest," and I'm like, no, to me, it's the first. The first really sets the tone of what that actor's gonna bring to the table. Except like in Moore's case, it kind of doesn't, right? Like we're like, yeah, it's a good movie, and then well, just because it's sign of the times. There's so many reasons as to why that is, but yeah, I've always found like those first movies are a pretty good indicator if you're gonna, what the Bond actor can bring to the table.
I don't know. I don't know if I quite agree with it. Like the first one, I don't know. I don't know if I would quite agree with that. I see where you're going from. I can see the path, but I don't know if I want to walk that one with you.
We'll save those points for if we do end up getting to a wrap up or something at that to that effect. But we'll save that point for that. It might make for a good, not necessarily argument, but discussion.
So, with that, anything else, or do you want to dive into the score?
I'm just trying to think if there is any. There probably is a million other things we could mention. There's so many just like little things that are fun to notice on those second, third, fourth, fifth watch throughs. No, but I think just for the sake of time and so forth, I think I'm ready to move into scores if you are.
All right, scores. I'm gonna do it just because, as poorly as this thing falls off the wagon, as it hits the later stops on its train route, I will give this a hearty, bountiful 7. It is the top. Like if you don't go with this film, there's not a lot of other ones I can really think of that'd be like, yes, if you're gonna show somebody a Bond movie, this just hits all those notes. Outside of it, seeing some ancient 2006 tech.
Yeah, and a lot of Sony product placement.
Right. There's another negative Sony product.
Yeah, I mean, it's thankfully it's not super distracting, but maybe on your first watcher you wouldn't really think about it, but it's definitely there. Yeah, for sure.
So that's where I want to go. I like it's just too darn good.
And it's stood sort of the quote unquote test of time.
It is now 16 years old.
Yeah, it's not a new movie, so that's certainly saying something. And then I think also with this movie, it's just it's a good, just plain movie. It doesn't have to be a Bond movie. This could have potentially not been a Bond movie and still been a very good action Hollywood type film. You could remove some of the names and you'd probably still have a really good time watching it. But it just adds to the aura a little bit to be part of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I will also go with a 7. I kind of knew going in, and remember I was like, I don't know if I really want to watch this one. I think because it was almost a foregone conclusion to some degree. I know we had to watch it and get to it and stuff, but I know I'm pretty sure these are the scores we gave the last time as well. So
it might have been.
and maybe that's where in my head I was like, maybe I'm kind of like inadvertently dreading doing this one just because I think it's a good I know what the conclusion is for you and I at least. Right.
So I think it's a good testament for the film though, is that you like even in a grit your teeth watch it, but and like I said, kind of starting it, I do wonder if this is one of those, maybe not every day, like Conan the Barbarian. Barbarian.
For some it might be though.
Well, but I was going to say, this is one that I could probably do maybe like once a week or so. Oh, kind of in that. Like I'm fine. Like I could, cause I literally would just, I popped it in, even though, cause I have this bad habit of being, when it's stuck in my head, it can get really boring for me. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I know what's going on. I know what this, but, cause I'm not one of those that likes to go through the minutia of watching a film, just cause, I don't know, for whatever reason, that just doesn't excite me so much. Mm-hmm. So when I have already it all in my head, this is, what you had mentioned about Lynn's character and what they put together when they wrote her, as well as Green's performance, and also just Green is another attractive lady.
She is.
But
oh, jeez, that scene when she comes in with that sort of, I
don't know, the burgundy,
like that purple color dress. Like she's stunning, right? Like she's stunning, like absolutely stunning. And some of the scenes before, she looks a little more, I wouldn't say like the quote unquote girl next door or whatever. She's still a very attractive woman, but like they just nailed the sequence there, right? Of how they made her hair and her makeup and her jewelry and the dress and it fits her perfect and all that stuff. It's just, they nailed it, right? And the whole, and I know it's part of the scene to be like, the idea she was supposed to be distracting the players at the table, but she decides to forego that and come from the other angle and everything. But yeah, like she looks stunning in that sequence, and even Mathis were like, I don't have to tell you, half the people at the table are still looking at you, and 100% of the audience still is, man or woman. She just looks gorgeous. So, but Craig looks amazing when he puts on the tux and he's checking himself out in the mirror. I'm like, he looks like Bond. He looks incredible in that. And, she even has to chuckle.
Yeah, it's a nice little endearing, like.
Yeah. It's tailored. like it's just, their back and forth is so well written and so well performed. And that's the one thing where I was like, just to see maybe even one additional scene, like in the future of them, like, when they were in their sort of honeymoon phase, like something like that, like a small callback would be kind of nice, but I know it's not necessary too. So, but yeah, they're just so good together in the film.
Yeah, so good. Bond was so happy. He was really, really.
His armor was taken off, right? His armor was down. So. And kudos to Craig too, to have to play that type of Bond, right? That had never really been done before. Like there's a slight moment of that with Brosnan in The World Is Not Enough. But Craig does a good job of balancing that, of being totally, you wouldn't want to meet this guy in a dark alley, and also being kind of romantic at the same point, and really showcasing, what would it be like to be that kind of cold person, to have your armor stripped of you. So it's a good movie. It's definitely a good starting point, but I would fear to show someone this and then so many other options are so different. They're so different.
That chugga choo choo train.
Not necessarily even just the Craig ones, just like so many of the other movies are so different than this movie. So.
Oh no, you show more one after this to be like, this is what it could have been. More of this.
Yeah, could have. Moonraker.
No, see, that's just a laugh. Come on now.
Well, no, like just to go on the complete opposite end of the spectrum of like, here's how kooky things can get. So, like just yeah, I know there are people that totally love that movie. So
you gotta split it up into the loony ones like Moonraker, Die Another Day, and stuff, and then the ones that are like, okay, those were way too loony. Let's put the other movies where we reeled it back.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have the stuff that's just mediocre in the middle too. So
no, that's the nice bridge, like Octopussy.
Yeah, well, for you,
hey,
Octopussy's the bridge. Me, that's falling off the bridge. So falling off the plane with Gobinda.
Oh no.
Out there? Get out there? Are you kidding?
Right.
You don't pay me enough.
So, you are the captain of the ship.
The gatekeeper here?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I did kind of imply to you a little while ago that it would be nice to maybe do something else, but it just doesn't make sense not to go without.
You are going with it?
Yeah, it only makes sense to go ahead with Quantum, and the reason being, there is no other Bond movie that is so directly tied to its previous movie.
Right.
Like, doesn't this happen like minutes after the end of Casino?
It's like, yeah, something like half an hour, 20 minutes.
Something like that, which it was stylistically probably not a smart choice. They should have been like, 2 weeks later, something like, I don't know, just to happen right after does seem a little abrupt, but it just makes sense to couple this and not watch it 3-4 films later and be like, oh yeah, I got to recall what happened in Casino for this or what have you. So I did have another movie in mind, but it does make sense to do Quantum. So we will go with Quantum of Solace.
Dun 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 dun. Such a cool title too. I love that title.
Yeah, it's a cool title. Oh. Certainly has a captivating, bit of mystique to it. So. But we shall see with this movie, since I think it's fair to say, has a lot of detractors. A lot of people do not have a good opinion of this movie, so I am looking forward to watching it again to see where we fall on that one.
Yeah, we might get another Goldfinger where we're kind of split apart on our scores there.
Maybe not. Let's see where we get to, I guess. And, yeah, you never know.
Dun dun dun.
It's a short one though. I know that.
It's the shortest one if I remember correctly. It's like an hour 40
or something, isn't it?
No, it's not. No, it's not that short.
Okay, well it's short though.
It's like an hour and 40 something minutes.
It might feel like an hour only because I remember the movie being pretty brisk as well. Like I remember it being a really quick movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Yeah, but should be good to get that one finally in place. That will miss with just not one Craig after. More. Yeah, not a whole lot as a whole, and only the one Craig at the end. So,
all right. Well, that is it from all of us. We could totally gush about this a whole lot more. Mm-hmm. I think when the original recording was like 3 hour long.
Oh goodness, was it that long?
It was something ridiculous.
Jeez, I think longer than our movie.
I think it might have been longer. I think it was longer than the movie. So, but yeah, we really like Casino Royale.
As do many. It's got a lot of fans. So.
And so gush along with us, and if not, well, plug the damn elsewhere. But that is it from Sushi and myself. Thanks for listening, and we will return.